It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. And last night, the NFL season officially came to its conclusion when the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58.
Yep.
Is that where we
58.
are? Jesus, man.
Which is 2 away from 60, right? And that means, if we live 40 more years, we'll get to 100.
And they're going to bring out all the stops for
Super Bowl C.
That doesn't even feel right, honestly.
No.
I
think that's the Roman numeral for 100. Like 80% sure.
Feels right. C.
Centennial kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, hopefully we make it there. But as for 58, the Chiefs building this dynasty is, I think we're firmly in dynasty territory.
Yeah, easily. I mean, they got 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. They are been to 4. So the only person to stop them has been the Bengals and Joe Burrow, and Mahomes was even banged up then. So it's nuts seeing what they've assembled. They have the youngest defense in the NFL, kind of hodgepodge receiver core, and they're still getting it done. I mean, Mahomes, man.
This was the year that said it all about the man under center and what he is capable of under less than ideal conditions. But we're going to look to maybe change that today. I'm not sure. But what we are doing, I talked about this last week. It is a return of an episode from season 1 in which you and I have said might just be our favorite episode of the entire season at Camp Dynasty. And that is perfect matches. The NFL season is now behind us. It is completely in the rear view mirror.
73 days till the NFL draft.
And now the countdown begins. Counting down to the draft, which means it's time to start talking about these players, our campers, not only as the players that they are and that they have been in college football, but looking ahead to the players that they will become when they are drafted into the NFL and starting to think about where that might be and how that may affect them come dynasty draft season. So this is really a shift in mentality here at Camp Dynasty. The NFL season ends. Now we're starting to really talk about what is coming next and getting ourselves prepared for the NFL draft and for the subsequent dynasty season that will ensue. So very excited to kick this thing off, Collin.
Yeah, I won't say the words that I think we've said on either 2 or 3 straight podcasts, but I mean, it's time to start seriously evaluating, where these guys are going to go, who these guys are as players. A lot of dynasty drafts now, managers are more and more impatient, and they're like, I need that dopamine hit of rookie drafts as soon as that NFL draft ends. And if you are behind starting now, you'll start to fall behind then because your league mates are preparing. So if you're here, you're in the right place.
Listen, it's real. You can feel it in the air. Our most recent TikTok, check out the channel if you haven't. There's the plug, at camp.dynasty. But our most recent TikTok, speaking about one of our top campers, Malik Nabers, got more views, more likes, all of those things. That just to me says people are ready. People are ready to start. Yeah, they're starting to think about the draft. They're starting to think about what's coming next in terms of dynasty rookie drafts. It is that time where we all collectively come together and start to really enjoy this draft process. So for us, love's in the air, baby. It's Valentine's Day this week. We are going to make some perfect matches, hopefully, here with some of our top campers. We will be going through a list of 10 top campers in this draft at a variety of positions, but it will be wide receiver heavy, as we expect the first round of Dynasty drafts to be heavy at the wide receiver position. These names are sort of across the board. We have high first round NFL, potential picks, and we have some guys that are, maybe even flirting with day 2, day 3 status in terms of some of the running backs. So it's a wide range. We're going to talk a lot of different landing spots here and how this is going to work. A little bit different than last year. We have selected our perfect matches for all 10 players. Last year, we each split this list 5 and 5, and we kind of just said, yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a perfect match. No. That's not how love works. We are going to lock these up. We have selected perfect matches for all 10. It will only be a perfect match here at Camp Dynasty if we agree on the spot that is a perfect match. If it is not, then it is not meant to be. So we probably won't have as many perfect matches this year, but maybe we're just expert matchmakers, Colin.
Yeah, maybe we just are just lockstep, synced up. We know each other's hearts, and we can, feel what the other. I feel like we got a little bit of chemistry.
Got some
here.
Synergy.
Yeah,
some chemistry.
So, I'm feeling there's going to be, more than half. At least.
Think so. Let's do it. Let's kick it off. Let's find out. I have brought back the Wheel of Love at Camp Dynasty, dusted it off, pulled it out from one of the back cabins there. We got it out front and center here. So let me go ahead and spin the Wheel of Love for the first time and see who we are matching up to kick this thing off. All right, we got one wide receiver, and it's Troy Franklin.
Okay.
So we are going to start with a name, and this is one of those interesting ones where the suitors here are kind of, varying levels. Will Franklin be a first rounder? Will he be, top of the second round? We're going to find out here. But I should mention that the suitors were chosen sort of based on projected draft range, but also like giving a little bit of breathing room towards like maybe a little higher than people are thinking, maybe a little lower than people are thinking. We're not making predictions as to who will draft them. We are deciding who is the perfect fit within that general draft range for these players. So it might not be a, one for one, what you're seeing in a mock draft or anything like that, but it is based on team fit. So
I chose the suitors for
go ahead.
Mr. Troy Franklin. So let's bring them out. So first of all, we've got the Houston Texans, who are selecting 23rd. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are selecting 26th. We've got the Arizona Cardinals' second first-round pick at 27. And we've got the Carolina Panthers sitting at the top of the second round at pick 33. So, I have my perfect match. You have your perfect match.
Yep.
And my perfect match for Troy Franklin is the Carolina Panthers at 33.
Would you like to explain your thought process, and then I will let you know if we have a perfect match here?
So, the Panthers desperately need help in the wide receiver room. I think that is a position that they will be addressing at 33. And if Troy Franklin ends up, falling out of the first round, which is very possible with this wide receiver class being as loaded as it is, the Panthers should be dipping into that. And Franklin, in my opinion, can be a number 1 wide receiver. I think he would serve best as a 1B, but I think he can be a number 1 for this Panthers offense that was running off of Adam Thielen's dusty bones last year. I mean, they tried to bring in Jonathan Mingo, and he didn't quite. I mean, we knew who he was as a player. He wasn't exactly a plug and play day one, 100+ target guy. And So then it was just a bunch of guys. So bring in Troy Franklin, get Bryce Young a difference maker, and let's see some improvement in this Panthers offense.
This is a perfect match.
Yes.
For one. I completely agree. And I think this is, Troy Franklin is a player that has a pretty wide range in this draft. I mean, if you're consuming mock drafts at a, unhealthy level, like I will be for the next several months, you'll see Troy Franklin in some cases as early as like 25-ish, like somewhere in that range in the first round, all the way to like a mid-second. And that's kind of a running theme with a lot of these wide receivers because there are so many of them. And teams will be choosing their flavor, choosing, which guy they resonated with most, who, checks out most based on what they're looking to add. And on a surface level, I think this is just a perfect match where you have Adam Thielen, who had 136 targets last year. That cannot happen again.
No.
That cannot happen again. And next up for them was Jonathan Mingo with 83 targets. And the thing about Mingo is he is more of that sort of like underneath, slot sort of option here. And he's very much still developing into a player that can be a reliable option. Well, let's throw Troy Franklin into this thing. Let's get an outside threat, a vertical threat for this offense. A guy who I won't call this a comp, but not necessarily dissimilar to a player like DJ Chark in what you're going to try to do with him. It's just that DJ Chark cannot separate at this point in his career, and right. Troy Franklin is an excellent separator. So you're getting a major upgrade there on the outside over a player like Chark. You're getting a potential new number one option, kind of letting Adam Thielen dial his workload back as he gets a little bit older. And you're giving Bryce Young another weapon that is a player that can separate and can get open and help this quarterback. And that's what it's all about in Carolina right now, is just building this around Bryce and trying to prop him up as much as, anything else.
And if you look at the tape for the Panthers last season, it is riddled with bad scheme. It's true, but also just guys are not open when Bryce hits that back foot. And I mean, yes, Bryce struggled on his own, but his receivers didn't give him any help. So a little separation in that wide receiver room would do a lot for this Panthers team, and Troy Franklin can provide that.
Boom.
Boom.
God, look at that. This love is everywhere. Look at all the smiling faces or champagne already. It's Troy is running away with the Carolina Panthers out the front door, but we have 9 other matches to make here. So let's keep it moving. I'm going to spin the wheel of love once again. Ooh, okay. We got a running back. It's Braelon Allen.
Okay.
So Braelon Allen is your RB1 in this class. The last time I checked, is that still an accurate statement?
It is still an accurate statement. He's still hanging out at the RB1 spot, and it has a lot to do with the class, but I also, there's some traits here. The age thing cannot be overlooked. So
with that said, you picked suitors for your RB1.
I did.
And those are
4 of them, again, as we did for all of these guys. So I kept it in the late second round range for Braelon because that feels about right for this running back class. I have the Eagles at pick 53. We have the Cowboys at pick 56. We have the Texans at pick 59, and we have the Ravens at pick 62. So my perfect match for Braelon Allen is the Houston Texans. So I've been singing the Braelon Allen Baltimore Ravens. I've been singing that tune for months. But you look at the offenses and talk about fit purely. Like, it'd be electric to see Braelon Allen with Lamar Jackson be their short yards back, do the dirty work, all that. But this Bobby Slowick offense with CJ Stroud at the helm, there's a good amount of under center stuff that they run, get the play action going. And I mean, you look at the bodies they have in the backfield. Dameon Pierce was essentially relegated to a special teams role this year. Devin Singletary, I mean, he's limited. We know that. He led the team in rushing this year, but he's still Devin Singletary. If they can get somebody that can pop big plays out of the backfield, that can get those short yards, because they don't really have a short yardage back right now, and do some things to make CJ Stroud's life easier, I think that would be pretty sick, because they haven't had a bona fide running back in a long time. So I got Braelon Allen paired up with the Houston Texans.
Man, look at you go. You've been building this Ravens reveal. This is true primetime television that you've just unveiled on us here. And just to clarify, if anybody is listening to this and saying Braelon Allen at the end of the second, that's ridiculous. That's not good. All the picks can translate. If we don't think he's a second, these teams are all there at the end of the third, which might be the range where some folks are talking about him right now. So just let's get that out of the way, because I can hear it already. But unfortunately, love is not in the air with this pick. This is not a perfect match. Houston has courted Braelon, and unfortunately, I am in the corner grabbing the Baltimore Ravens by the lapels and throwing them in Braelon's direction, and creating quite a scene here in the cabin at Camp Dynasty, because you sold it to me and I bought it, and then I bought some more of it, because I love this fit between the Ravens and Braelon Allen, because I don't see Braelon Allen quite at the same level that you see him. And that might be a reason for this, but I see Braelon Allen slotting so perfectly into the Gus Edwards role for the Ravens offense. Braelon Allen traditionally for 3 years has run a lot of gap scheme at Wisconsin. This year in the spread, the air raid that was brought in, he was running a ton of zone, and it was a ton of zone out of the gun. So that was a not great recipe for who this player is. And I think we see how the Ravens used Gus Edwards this year was, a lot. And most NFL teams are running a lot of both. It's going to be a lot of power and zone stuff. But with the Ravens and how they were using Gus, it's a lot of power run, a lot of gap scheme stuff, a lot of red zone stuff. And I think that is those are the areas where Braelon Allen can make, a mark no matter what. We can sit here all day and argue about his, upside and his explosiveness and his versatility and all of those things. At the end of the day, the Ravens in this system where they're not asking Gus to catch the ball, they're not asking him to do a lot of stuff. They're just saying, hey, hit this hole, hit it hard, and get in the end zone. And I think Braelon Allen is made for that and can be an upgrade potentially over a player like a Gus Edwards.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, so when I was thinking about it, I was in the same thought process where I was like, man, Braelon Allen in this, Gus Edwards role. And I was thinking, you know what? We're talking about perfect matches. And I'm thinking bigger than Gus Edwards' role. I'm thinking starting running back. I'm thinking about dynasty asset. I'm thinking about, mid first, we're going with this guy because of the landing spot. And I was feeling electric Houston offense coming off of that those huge playoff performances, and slot Braelon Allen in there wearing number 0 in the backfield, new jerseys. I don't know.
I mean, I can see it. I like what I'm seeing in my mind when I see that, but Houston will come up again. Maybe we got a couple other running backs to talk about. We might talk about Houston again. That is a team that could use a running back. So we might be back to Houston, but in the meantime, let's spin the wheel of luck. See if we can get back on the right track with some perfect matches. And just snuck it out. We got another running back.
Oof.
Jonathon Brooks, a hot name in this class, one that is based on the mocks that I've been seeing, kind of like an 80% maybe RB1 at this point. I'm seeing a lot of people identifying this player as the RB1. He is both of our RB2s at this point in time. So I have suitors for Jonathon Brooks. And for Jonathon Brooks, I selected the Dallas Cowboys because we know they need a running back at this point. Tony Pollard not cutting it anymore, unfortunately. Maybe some dynasty managers don't want to hear that. Maybe we're still in denial about Tony Pollard, but I'm calling it like I see it.
And he's an unrestricted free agent.
Well, there you go. So now that they're not bringing him back. I'm just going to say that. They're not bringing him back. So we need a running back in Dallas. How about Houston? There they are. So coming from the Texas Longhorns, we have 2 Texas professional football teams courting the Longhorns running back here. Texans, we just talked about why they would need a running back.
Hey, Devin Singletary, also an unrestricted free agent.
Ooh. My dynasty team is sad about that because I enjoyed the Houston Devin Singletary renaissance, but the Green Bay Packers, talk about unrestricted free agents. We got one there with A.J. Dillon, and we have another potential cap casualty in Aaron Jones that is yet to be decided or seen how they will approach that. But it does seem as though the Packers will need to address the running back position in some fashion during the draft. And then the Arizona Cardinals, who were a hot pick for running backs in last year's class. We talked a lot about Jahmyr Gibbs potentially slotting into this team last year, and he went way too early for that to happen. But so we're going to do it again. Arizona back in the running back market potentially with James Conner in the final year of his deal, and potential cut opportunity for them as well. They have the out going into this season. So 4 teams here, one of which, tried to make some magic happen with Braelon Allen, but they were spurned. And for me, I did not pick the Houston Texans as my perfect match for Jonathon Brooks. I chose the Green Bay Packers because I see Jonathon Brooks as an excellent replacement, or, what you would aspire to be a replacement for Aaron Jones. I see these players as not necessarily similar, like stylistically, but I see Jones's role in the Packers offense. He has operated as their zone running back, as their outside, get him on tosses, inside zone. A.J. Dillon primarily, running inside, running gap scheme. Aaron Jones very much filling this zone role, pass catching role for the Packers. Jonathon Brooks, a perfect fit in a zone running offense. Excellent vision, great one cut ability, played a lot of zone at Texas, and can catch the ball. He's not a, advanced level receiver. That's not how they were using him. But I think you see these skills that suggest that he can get even better than he was this year as a pass catcher. So I think the Packers here opting to address this need before it becomes dire, whether or not that means cutting Aaron Jones or allowing Jonathon Brooks, coming off of an ACL injury, to acclimate onto this team behind a star like Aaron Jones for one more year, and then letting him take the reins in 2025. But I see this as a perfect match long term, and I think this can be the future of the Packers running back room.
Well, we're 0 for 2 on running back.
Oh, damn it.
No perfect match here. My perfect match for Jonathon Brooks is the Arizona Cardinals. So Jonathon Brooks is going to be down for the count at the beginning of the season, rehabbing from the ACL. He might play at the beginning of the season, but it'll be in a limited capacity, to kind of look at Breece Hall's recovery. You could also cite like Kyler's recovery. He got injured late in the season and didn't quite come back till about midway through this season. Well, Brooks can take some time with the Cardinals because they are not winning a boatload of games next year. I don't think they're going to be contending for an AFC or an NFC West title. I think it'll be another year of kind of getting things right under this new coaching staff with a new GM, building things under Kyler and then whoever they end up going with their, number 4 pick. Number 4 pick?
Yep, number 4.
So I think that he slots in perfect. Either James Cook is a cap casualty or James Conner. Sorry.
Yep.
James Conner is a cap casualty, or James Conner plays this year and Brooks hangs out, as the number 2 rehab, get right, and then comes into 2025. Wow. As the lead running back for this team. So I think that either way, he's going to be in a friendly offense where he can, show off what he's got, and whether James Conner's there or not, kind of similar to what you're talking about with the Packers and Aaron Jones, he can be the guy, not this year, but the year after.
Man, a lot of disgruntled looks in the room right now. Folks are frowning. Some are crying. Maybe
the Ravens are really unhappy. They thought that they were locked into Braelon Allen.
Yeah. So they're crying in the corner. Somebody needs to go check on them. We are 0 for 2 on running backs, but we do have one more, so there's hope. But let's go back to the wheel of love and maybe get one of our top names in this class. Let's find out if we can get a perfect match there, and there we go. Rome Odunze, potentially the hottest name in this draft class, man. The buzz around Odunze lately has been insane. You have Daniel Jeremiah coming out saying, this is my favorite player in the draft, and then you have other analysts following his lead and saying, man, I love Odunze. I have him as wide receiver 2. That it's creating an interesting situation because we have been so locked in on Nabers at that number 2 spot, and I still am, but we are now living in a world in which, it's not out of the question that Rome Odunze is drafted as the wide receiver 2 in the NFL. So let's take a look at the potential suitors in that case. These will be very high in the draft order. We expect Rome to go very high, no matter if he is number 2 or number 3. So starting off, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. This will be a hot name for the wide receivers because despite drafting Quentin Johnston only 1 year ago in the first round, there is still a big need at that position. And we can talk about that with Keon Allen and Mike Williams and their age and contract situations. So that's definitely a need. New York Giants right after them, picking at number 6. This is still, again, this is a team we talked about potentially needing a wide receiver in the first round last year, and they opted to go a different direction. We got Jalen Hyatt in there, but we still need names in this room at the wide receiver position. But is it their biggest need? We will find out. Tennessee Titans, another team that I don't think has been really linked to receiver in many cases. They pretty desperately need to address their offensive line, but when you look at the room with an aging Nuke Hopkins and a Braelon Brooks, who we are still waiting for, does create an environment in which we could use a talent like Rome Odunze. And then finally, the Chicago Bears, which have been sort of bookending this run of the top three receivers in many cases, whether it's Odunze, whether it's Nabers, whichever one is falling down the top 10, it usually stops right here with Chicago after they select their quarterback with number 1. So 4 teams here, all of which need wide receiver. Which one is the perfect match for Rome Odunze? I have selected the New York Football Giants as my perfect match for Rome Odunze. Now, why would I do this? I thought about this one long and hard. This was this one and another one were my 2 hardest decisions, and they're based around each other. But for me, while the Giants desperately need to address their offensive line, and quite honestly, I feel like they will come draft time, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about perfect matches, and I see Rome Odunze as a perfect fit in New York because A, larger than life already. He has taken on a persona of his own. The New York media will fall in love with him. The fans will fall in love with him. This will be a celebrated pick. Nobody cares about Joe Alt. Nobody cares about offensive tackle. They want Rome Odunze in this offense, all right? So Rome Odunze, he's got the name value there, but also the skill set. What is something that we talked about last year with the Giants? They need size in the wide receiver room. We know that they have some interesting names. Nobody that's a number 1 really. We like Wan'Dale Robinson. We like some of the other complementary pieces, but they don't have a number 1 and they don't have size, at least a wide receiver that can come in and be that big weapon on the outside. And I think that's exactly what Rome Odunze is. You can argue with me about Daniel Jones and how that would affect this pick in terms of a dynasty projection, but I'm looking big picture. I'm looking long term. They'll figure out quarterback eventually, and Rome is maybe the alpha that they've been waiting for since Odell Beckham Jr.
Let that breathe for a minute. Do an anti-Tony Romo.
Yeah, thank you.
Odunze, this is, like you said, one of the most interesting players at the top of the draft because it felt like for a little while he was the odd man out in this top 3 with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, and then Rome Odunze. And now it seems like there's people, put him at 2 comfortably, put him at 1 potentially, I've seen. And man, this is one of them that I had a lot of trouble with. It's like all these teams would be good, but I feel like one of them stands alone, and that's the New York Football Giants.
Let's go.
We're back. They need a wide receiver in the worst way. Like they need a guy on the outside that could win. Like you said, there's the Daniel Jones thing, and that's real. And that's going to kind of, turn people off, I think, when it comes to rookie draft time. It's like, oh, well, he's got Daniel Jones throwing the ball. I don't think he's their long-term solution. I know they signed him to the extension. I think they all realized that was a mistake, and they should have just franchise tagged him. But that's neither here nor there. With the Chargers, it's a great match because it's sexy. It's, Jim Harbaugh just watched him play in the national championship game, just schemed against him. He's like, man, this guy's good. But they, like you said, they just took Quentin Johnson in the first round. They still have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams beyond this year with contracts. I know Mike Williams is coming off an injury. Keenan, he had an incredible year, and he's been incredibly consistent. Age, he's getting up there, but you never know. So who knows what this new Chargers staff wants to do. I mean, they cleaned house completely, and maybe they're just looking to build around Herbert and give him some young weapons. The Titans, I feel like we can both agree they are going to go O-line. I think they're going to be getting one of the top guys. And then the Bears, that was the one that I was like, man, maybe he'll go. Like, maybe this is the perfect match. You know, the Bears stepped up. They gave a great pitch. They're like, hey, we're taking a QB1. We're going Caleb Williams. You know, put him across from DJ Moore. It's going to look great. Fireworks. But I think ultimately he's the unquestioned number one wide receiver. You know, give him 120, 150 targets in New York and see what he can do with them.
Feels good. Feels good to feel love, see the smiling faces, more champagne. It's getting everywhere, but we'll worry about that later. For now, we will go back to the wheel of life. Let's find out who we are matching up next. And I'm seeing another big name, and there it is, Brock Bowers. Now, I can tell you about Brock Bowers. This is another one of the most popular names in this draft. If there is one thing that I've learned from listeners or folks commenting to us online, it is that people love Brock Bowers. They want Brock Bowers to be drafted very highly. In fact, over pretty much anybody not named Marvin Harrison Jr. And much of that, Collin, may depend on where he is selected in the NFL draft. So, with that said, who are our suitors for the tight end, Brock Bowers?
The suitors for Brock Bowers are as follows. We have the Los Angeles Chargers. They're back. Got the number 5 pick. Nobody really knows what they're going to do. We have the Tennessee Titans. We have the New York Jets. And we have the New Orleans Saints, if there's a little bit of a Brock Bowers slide. So my perfect match for Brock Bowers is the Los Angeles Chargers. So Brock Bowers is a weapon. He can do everything. He did get caught standing next to Gronk. We all saw the picture. He did look like a software engineer. It's okay. Because put on the tape. He doesn't play like that. But the Chargers are going to need a tight end. They just don't have one at all. And instead of dipping into the wide receiver pool, they can get somebody that, you know, Jim Harbaugh is familiar with as a former college football guy. You know, he's been seeing this guy win best tight end in college football 2 years in a row. Gerald Everett is an unrestricted free agent. Let him walk out the door and just bring in a dynamic piece. Let, you know, your wide receiver core that you have right now, Keon Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, let them hang out. Let them be them and just bring in a certified weapon to carve up the middle of the field, to help out Justin Herbert, get yards after the catch. Hard-nosed guy. You know, Jim Harbaugh is going to like that.
Jim Harbaugh. Long and storied coaching career that has involved many very talented tight ends. Let's go all the way back to Stanford. Tight end U, maybe once upon a time. And there were some names there during his tenure. A young Zach Ertz had just entered the program when he departed for San Francisco, in which he was matched up with Vernon Davis, another slightly undersized, very fast,
very
tight
underrated.
End. Very underrated. So, you know, Bowers, not underrated, but he is a little small, very fast. And then Michigan, in which a program based around the run game based around big personnel groups. They ran a lot of 12 personnel this year, helping Blake Corum and company in the run game, and also getting players like Colston Loveland and A.J. Barner involved in the passing game as well. And all of that, Colin, is precisely why this is a perfect match. This is the other one that I drove myself a little crazy on, because I think the Chargers end up being this sort of like destination point where we have these wide receivers with so much talent, and you start to envision, what does life look like with Malik Nabers in LA, or what does life look like with, Rome Odunze in LA, with Justin Herbert. But I think there is a lot of truth to what is becoming a bit of a cliche at this point already. And this will probably evolve over time. But the latest, buzzy talking point here is this Harbaugh, Brock Bowers, hard-nosed football. We want to run the ball. We want to get, 12 personnel in there. They're going to have to figure out a run game to base that scheme around, because it's not coming from Austin Eckler. But
I know who it's coming from. Blake Corum.
Boom.
They're drafting Blake Corum. There's no way they don't.
I would be shocked, to be fair, if the Chargers do not walk out of the draft with Blake Corum. But Brock Bowers, I think there is a lot of truth to this like running narrative of like, he is first and foremost a weapon, like you said. That, like, let's not pretend like them getting, a player like Nabers or Odunze, like this isn't that far of a departure in terms of like potential offensive impact, because you can get Bowers involved in a variety of ways, and you already have these great receivers to play with. And, I don't know what they'll do in terms of the cap situation. We have a new GM in there as well. We don't know how they're going to attack it. Both of those players do have outs at this point in time. There is, a lower dead money hit at this point for those players, but we'll see how that goes. Quentin Johnston, I mean, I get it. It was a very bad rookie season, and that's not a great indicator of future success, but I do think there is still this like, okay, he's still developing. We can maybe get something out of him. While that's all happening, just get Brock Bowers in there. Let him work the middle of the field. Justin Herbert is excellent in the middle of the field. Let's get him, involved in these creative ways, motion, play action, all of these things that he was doing at Georgia. They'll be able to use him in similar ways there. And so I think at the end of the day, while 5 may seem rich for a tight end, because we just kind of did this and it was almost like a thought experiment of like, should we do this anymore? And you could argue no, but we're going to do it again with Brock Bowers when the fit is this perfect.
Good players matter. There's the people that say running backs don't matter, linebackers don't matter. You can get tight ends late. Good players matter. That's how I feel. And Brock Bowers, damn good player. So,
I mean, this is another thing here. We've talked about this already, but it's going to continue to be a thing here. Brock Bowers ending up at 18, 20, 22, like these later first round spots
not
that you see him in mock drafts. Like, this is exactly what happened with Bijan last year. I mean, I
felt weird even like thinking he was going to fall to 14. I was like, this is too late.
Right. And honestly, that's more of what you're seeing. Like, most mock drafts have him in that like teens to like early 20s sort of range. And I'm like, I just don't see that happening. I know there's not many great tight end fits in the top 10 right now, but that's not going to stop this from happening. So
just don't let him fall to Cincinnati at 18.
Yeah.
That'd be messed up.
All right. We are on a little bit of a hot streak. With the atmosphere in the air has turned. We're feeling the emotions, the love here once again. Let's keep it rolling. We're going back to the wheel of love. We have 5 names remaining.
Halfway through.
Let's keep coming. At the top of this draft, it's Malik Nabers time. So now let's remember, the Chargers are taken. They have courted Brock Bowers. It is a mutual affection. They are out the door doing whatever it is they're doing. That means the Chargers are off the table for Malik Nabers, and that has been a hot spot for him, including for us in conversations that we've had. So let's find out what happens with Malik Nabers. Give me your suitors for Malik Nabers.
So my suitors are as follows, or I should say were as follows. We have the New England Patriots. We have the Arizona Cardinals with their first round pick. We have the Los Angeles Chargers, who are now off the board. And we have the Chicago Bears. So each of these suitors now has a higher percent chance of going home with Malik Nabers, and I'm sure they're all ecstatic about that. And the perfect match for Malik Nabers is the Chicago Bears. So, how do we get here with Malik Nabers is the number one question, because I don't think he falls to 9, where Chicago is picking with their second pick. I don't think they take him 1. So this will take a little bit of trade chicanery. Maybe they trade up from 9, get their guy, secure a wide receiver to put alongside their quarterback at 1. Maybe they trade down from 1 and select Malik Nabers to pair up with Justin Fields. So either way, I think Malik Nabers is perfect for this Bears offense. I think it's exactly what they need. So Darnell Mooney is their only guy with real speed outside of DJ Moore, obviously. And Malik Nabers has speed to spare. So Mooney is likely out the door, I would assume. Replace him with number 8. Good Lord. It is going to be, pair him up with DJ Moore. They can both play every position that a wide receiver might need to play. They get this passing game off the ground. Shane Waldron, he schemed up a pretty solid offense, despite what Jackson Smith and Jigma might lead you to believe. He schemed up a 2 wide receiver heavy offense with Lockett and DK Metcalf. It's walking into a changing situation in Chicago where things might be turning around a little bit for them.
I won't beat around the bush. This is a perfect match.
Hell
yeah. And to be quite honest, at this point in time, I will not rule out that they can stick at 9 and get either Malik Nabers or Rome Odunze. I think there is enough, stock to be put in how offensive line needy these teams are, from the Giants to Tennessee. Atlanta's not taking another wide receiver. So I think
Bowers.
Well,
Atlanta.
Why not? But I do think there is a possibility of this happening, and it doesn't make sense, mentally. It's like a player like this shouldn't get to 9, but I've seen, and this is a little bit of an outlier and an exception, but again, if you're consuming an unhealthy amount of NFL mock drafts, you may come across one such as the one that I saw, in which Malik Nabers was going 15 in this draft. And I'm like, I don't think so, but maybe I don't know. What do we know? So, but I think it's a lot more realistic that he does, or one of them falls to 9. And in this case, I think this is the perfect match, because I go back to something that I recently heard Connor Rogers say. Connor Rogers of Draft fame. He's a multi-platform persona. You probably have heard this name if you follow along with the draft. But anyway, Connor Rogers, well-respected, very knowledgeable. He recently said, I can't get the idea of a DJ Moore, Malik Nabers offense out of my head because these players are very similar in what they do and how they win. And initially, when I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't really love that fit because it's like, why have two of the same guy? Like a player like Odunze might fit better in this offense because he's more of that perimeter, contested catch player. I think this is a dangerous game, though. When you have Caleb Williams, what we assume to be Caleb Williams, and then you add these two surgical wide receivers that are both versatile weapons as well. And you have a player like DJ Moore who's playing, 80-20 outside this past year. And you had a player like Darnell Mooney, like you said, who is an unrestricted free agent this year, playing a majority of their slot snaps. So now you have Malik Nabers, who excels in the slot, slotting right in the slot role, but he can switch off. We can mix him and match him. We can put more in the slot. We can get Nabers outside. We can match him up. We can get creative. And by God, they're going to be open. Somebody's going to be open on every play. And there's a lot of speed on this field. So I think it makes a lot of sense to just build on that sort of mold of a player, build this offense around that skill set with a player like Caleb Williams. It's a scary thought. And as a Packers fan, it's a very scary thought.
Yeah, I don't really like it.
But it is a perfect match. So we are continuing the streak here. Man, this is like these rose petals are like falling from the sky. Where are they even coming from? That's what I'm wondering.
It's electric.
It's crazy. Let's go back to the Wheel of Love. Got 4 names. We got the White Whale is still out there. Everybody wants to talk to him, but we're going to have to wait on Marvin because it's time to talk about Keon Coleman, one of the most divisive names in this draft class. And with that comes a very expansive draft range, Colin. So where do we go in terms of our 4 suitors?
So I still believe Keon Coleman to be a first-round wide receiver. Some people do not agree with me. That's okay. So you can, like Austin said earlier, translate these to a different round if you so please. But for me, I have the Indianapolis Colts. We're sitting at pick 15. It'd be pretty high for Keon Coleman, but I'm rocking with it. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 17. We have the Dallas Cowboys at 24. And we have the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at 32. So a lot of interesting teams here. You got the Colts, they got a couple guys. They got Anthony Richardson, Pittman just had a huge season. You have the Jaguars, who a lot of question marks at that wide receiver room. We don't know about Calvin Ridley coming back. Christian Kirk is a mainstay there. Slot guy, though. We got the Cowboys, and they got CeeDee Lamb, obviously, who is going to be the guy. But outside of that, it's a little bit questionable. And then Kansas City. We saw the patchwork that Patrick Mahomes was throwing to in that Super Bowl, in that playoff run. My perfect match for Keon Coleman is the Dallas Cowboys. So Cowboys, they have CeeDee Lamb. Behind him is Brandon Cooks, who's, Brandon Cooks. Getting a little long in the tooth at this point.
Perpetually underrated Brandon Cooks.
It's true. We're getting the perpetual is getting long at this point. Like, we're in year 9 of him being underrated. We have Michael Gallup, who's there also, who, I mean, we can all be honest, hasn't been that great since the injuries. And I just don't see Jerry Jones looking at this guy, Stephen Jones, whoever's doing the drafting these days, looking at a guy like Keon Coleman and not thinking this is the player that can elevate our offense. You know, they go and they can free up CD a little bit. They get a guy that can run after the catch. You see it on the punt returns, the kick returns. He can complement CD really well, because CD, I mean, he is like one of the best receivers in football. He does a lot of his work, you know, dragging across the field, getting the ball in his hands, making things happen, going over the middle of the field. I mean, CD can do everything, but he excels in the middle of the field. Coleman can play on that perimeter a little bit. He can be a little more of an athlete, a little more of a jump ball guy, kind of take Gallup's role and just juice it up, you know, make it, you know, 7 years younger and give it good knees and better hands and see what happens. So Keon Coleman, my perfect match, Dallas Cowboys.
Look, Keon Coleman, that was a big game. Big game. Highlights, big catches, made for Texas football, made for AT&T Stadium, the lights, gets to develop. Yeah. I mean, come on, man. Gets to develop behind one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Some might even argue the best. I won't, but you might. So that's a good thing. He gets to develop. Got Dak Prescott, MVP candidate quarterback at the helm. We like that a lot. We like that this offense is explosive. It's a good team. And that is precisely why this would have been a great fit if the Kansas City Chiefs were not amongst Keon Coleman's suitors, because the defending champs, what do we know about them? Patrick Mahomes basically did it himself, and I don't know how he did it, and it showed up again in this game. We had drops, we had miscommunications. Rashee Rice had a really promising rookie season, and honestly, the only thing that gives me pause about this fit is that I almost feel like Keon Coleman is best served in a Rice type of role in his first year in the NFL, where it's a lot of design touches, it's quick stuff, it's get the ball in his hands and let him go to work after the catch. Because I feel like that is maybe the strongest part of his game in terms of what's going to translate from day one in the NFL. I think the contested catch stuff obviously is a big part of his game, but it is an area in which he's still refining and developing. I think he's a very large man that is extremely athletic and can do things with the ball in his hands. We mentioned, the punt return work that he did there wasn't always showing up in the receiving work, but you can see how skilled he is with the ball in his hands in the open field. So I almost feel like a team could use him in a way like Rashee Rice, who was a perimeter sort of like vertical threat at SMU, a jump ball guy. He was that sort of player, and the Chiefs kind of changed his game to fit what they wanted to do and to fit, a role that could help him acclimate to the NFL level. But outside of that, I really do like this fit a lot, because I think it gives Patrick Mahomes that player that is going to, maybe he's not the most consistent separator. Maybe he's not, that we can at least budge a little bit on that and say he's not the best separator in this class. When the play breaks down and Pat needs a player downfield that can go up and win the ball, this is one of the best ones in this draft. and there is plenty of time and room for Keon Coleman to continue developing from, okay, he's a player that we can throw it up to, he can bring it down, we can scheme touches for him, get the ball in his hands, he can play special teams potentially, to this just develops into the number one option in Kansas City. That is an outcome in Keon Coleman's, timeline. It's in his multiverse, reality. Like,
getting excited for Madam Web, I see.
Yeah, yes. Sydney Sweeney's has got me thinking about.
Hey, don't get me started. Let's keep going. Hey.
But yes, I think 32 defending champs add to an area of weakness with an ultra upside player that might not be there today, but could be there in a year or two as the guy that this team and this quarterback can rely on.
Yeah, the Chiefs was the other person at the podium for me. I was, my only concern with Kansas City is we've seen them take, a couple of receivers, looking at Sky Moore, who, they just kind of, he needed a little bit of work. He needed a little bit of help. And, Steve Smith said he was going to be the next great wide receiver. And seems like they kind of tossed him away. You look at Kadarius Toney. I can't. Yeah, no.
Please don't.
But yeah, I can totally see a scenario where he becomes a favorite target of Patrick Mahomes. And if he's at, 32 and that happens, that would be pretty electric. But, man, I can't stop thinking of like this Dallas offense with Keon Coleman, both of them going for, 1,000 plus, looking pretty sexy, throwing the ball up and down the field.
Listen, I like that you brought up the Dallas wide receiver fit a lot because it's not something we're hearing much right now, but I think it's something that is worth considering and worth talking about, because the way that you outlined it there, I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, we have CD, we know that, but what else is there? There's not a lot. So I think a lot of these, fits are things that, okay, yeah, that's happening. Like we've read about this, we've thought about this, but it's fits like this where it's not really on the radar, but it makes sense, that are worth considering talking about. So I like that you brought that up a lot. I hope we have a couple more of those yet in the bag, but we are running low on names here. There are 3 names left on the wheel of love, and I will spin that right now, and it looks like we have Brian Thomas Jr. So the other wide receiver that sort of fits in this range, and where exactly in this range will he go? Nobody really knows right now, but my potential fits, my suitors for Brian Thomas Jr. are all the way up here as early as the Broncos picking at number 12, which I've heard a lot of rumblings that Sean Payton's not leaving this draft without a quarterback, and I'm preparing myself for quarterback mania in 2 months from now. But I still thought this was an interesting one that you're not really hearing much about right now. How about the Jaguars, which I think you have heard a fair amount about? We've seen some wide receivers mocked there, including this player himself. You outlined that need with Keon Coleman. How about the Cincinnati Bengals, where, this might not be their biggest need as a team, but if T. Higgins somehow gets out of that building, this could be an interesting player to take over that role in this offense. And then the Houston Texans, which some folks are really adamant need a wide receiver in the first round. And I might disagree with you because I think Nico Collins is really good, but they're here. They're trying to get Brian Thomas Jr. because he is also very good. So who is the perfect match for Brian Thomas Jr.? That would be the Jacksonville Jaguars because of one primary reason. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence needs weapons to throw it to. And we tried this with Calvin Ridley, and Calvin was fine, but he wasn't exactly the player that I think Jags fans maybe were expecting to get when that trade was made, and maybe not even the player that Doug Peterson and company were expecting in this offense. But his future is, regardless, uncertain with the team right now. And outside of that, like we said before, Christian Kirk, okay, that's fine. That's going to be your slot player. And then we have guys like Zay Jones that are still somehow relevant in 2024. So let's try to change that by bringing in a large, very fast perimeter threat like Brian Thomas Jr., who can be a vertical winner in this offense in which Trevor Lawrence excels at pushing the ball down the field. Let's get him a real, big target for these deep shots that he wants to take. And then in the red zone, where they have struggled mightily for 2 years now, Brian Thomas Jr., 17 touchdowns this year. A lot of them were, like we said, these deep shots, flies, posts, and all of those things, but not a bad jump ball player himself. And that shows up in red zone opportunities. So let's get a player that can help them in that area as well. I think this is the perfect fit.
It's a perfect match. It's got to be a perfect match.
It's too easy.
This one was, written in the stars, you might say. Brian Thomas Jr. brings an element that the Jaguars lack right now. You think about what you said, the Zay Jones of it, and you just replace Zay Jones with Brian Thomas, and it just completely elevates what your offense can do. I think it obviously helps out Trevor Lawrence. Even if you keep Calvin Ridley and your offense is Ridley, Christian Kirk, and Brian Thomas with ETN and Trevor Lawrence, and then, Evan Ingram, who knows what they're going to do with him. But that's the makings of a much improved offense. And you just have a guy that can win downfield, can win in contested catches, the red zone thing, cannot be understated. How bad they were in the red zone, how many missed opportunities it had. Trevor Lawrence, his numbers looked not great this year, but you watch how many, it's unbelievable how many times wide receivers didn't get the second foot down, how many times it goes off their fingertips, how many times it's just out of reach. There is probably 10, 15 touchdowns just on the board. And I think Brian Thomas helps with the red zone stuff, helps convert a few more of those, 10, 15 missed opportunities, but also just takes the ceiling off of this team, because Ridley is not the deep threat that he once was. Because you look back at the Atlanta Calvin Ridley, and that's a guy that can, route somebody up and beat him over the top while Julio does his work in the intermediate. Ridley just does not have the juice. At least he didn't last year. It was his first year back. Give him a little bit maybe. But he just did not have that juice. Christian Kirk, he was a deep threat in Arizona. He just hasn't been that guy with the Jags. They don't ask him to do that very much. And then it's everybody else. So Brian Thomas walks in and fills a role that, the Jaguars are desperate for. I don't know if they go wide receiver this early because they have a lot of holes to fill, but this is a perfect match.
We're doing pretty good. We're doing all right as matchmakers. There's a lot more happy faces than sad faces, but there are 2 more to go. Let's see if we can end on a high note. We still have the man himself. Will we save the best for last? No, we won't, because it's time to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. The wheel of love has spoken. And I mean, Marvin we're at a point now where he's being talked about as high as number 3 over a quarterback. And that is why we have our first suitor here is the New England Patriots. This is becoming a realistic option that they will forego their quarterback need in favor of a potentially franchise-altering talent at the wide receiver position. We also have the Arizona Cardinals, who feel like, they walked into this little speed dating session and they kind of felt like, this is ours to lose, right? But is that a little bit of Jonathan Gannon false charisma coming through? I don't know, potentially. Well, it got a little easier for them because another option here was the LA Chargers. They're long gone with Brock Bowers at this point. And the New York Football Giants, who are also long gone with a wide receiver of their own at this point. So it is now a battle of 2. And the Arizona Cardinals will not be denied on their search for love, and specifically love with the prize of the session, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr. This one is really too easy, and that's exactly why it's a perfect match, because for months and months and months, we have been considering the possibility that Arizona would land in a spot in the draft to be able to select this player who fits so well with where they are and where they need to go. We have you can debate where Kyler falls on the franchise quarterback scale, but I'm going to call him a franchise quarterback. They have that guy in the building already. What they don't have is a number 1 option for him, a player that he has not had since DeAndre Hopkins. And so let's get Marvin Harrison Jr. in here, the building block, the wide receiver 1 from the minute he steps into that building, forms this rapport with Kyler, elevates this offense single-handedly. And then we can start to really see what do we have here and where can we go as a franchise with these 2 pieces on offense.
It's franchise cornerstone, Marvin Harrison Jr., and I'd hate to see him go to the Patriots. So, of course, the Cardinals is a perfect match. I mean, this is one of my locks of the draft is Marvin Harrison Jr. going number 4 to Arizona. And the only thing that would spoil that is if the Patriots took him at 3. So I'm just hoping that doesn't happen and he doesn't have to suffer through, the doldrums of Zappy, Mac Jones, maybe Kirk Cousins, I don't know, whoever they end up starting next year at quarterback, whether they go the free agent route, draft Bo Nix or something and throw him into anyway. I don't want that to happen to Marvin Harrison Jr. What I do want is him to get paired up with an established quarterback who we know can support fantasy relevant players. Hollywood Brown may be out the door. He's a free agent. They still have guys in that building. They have Trey McBride at tight end. Because, the question becomes, is he going to be able to succeed as the only guy on the offense? Is there enough talent to, just have Marvin Harrison Jr. and nobody else? Well, I think that they have, enough where he's not going to be able to, defenses aren't going to be able to just say, cover Marvin Harrison Jr. We don't have to worry about anything else. They have McBride, they have Michael Wilson, they have, their little guys that they throw out there, Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch, and their run game looked good this year with James Conner. So get Marvin Harrison Jr. in here. Like you said, build that rapport with Kyler Murray and watch him become one of the top wide receivers in football. Watch him become, top 3 Dynasty wide receiver. Watch him become a top 10 Dynasty asset, period. Like, this is a cornerstone. This is the guy that walks into your building and immediately changes like the fate of your offense.
That's exactly how 101 managers may feel in this situation, in which he is the new face of the Arizona Cardinals. So that is a perfect match. And we have one final name. There has been much celebration. Hearts are swelled with affection and love, and many have already left. We have some down by the lake, potentially. We're not going to ask any questions as to what's
Cameras
going on.
Cameras are not going down there.
But there is one lonely camper standing in the middle of the cabin here, finishing off this perfect match event ahead of Valentine's Day. And it is my RB1 in this class, Trey Benson. Can I be the perfect match? I'll take him. I'm in.
We haven't connected with a running back yet.
We have not. So everything kind of rides on this. We've been lockstep with the wide receivers. We've gone 6 for 7 on wide receivers. 5 for 6. Can I count? I don't know. 5 for 6 on wide receivers.
Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Kind of counts.
That counts. 5.5. So will we get a running back? Trey Benson. I have suitors for Benson here. The Los Angeles Chargers, who have synced up with Brock Bowers, but they're not above polygamy. All right. There is a situation here where we can come back in the 3rd round and say, all right.
Positions.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get weird.
Yeah, why not? How about the New York Football Giants? Again, we might double dip here. It's 2024, so, who cares? How about the Arizona Cardinals? More teams here that have added to the pass catching position early in this draft that are now trying to round out the running back department. And the Green Bay Packers, who were spurned on Jonathon Brooks. And because I played matchmaker on that one, you can expect that they will not be factoring in this one. So the Chargers, Giants, and Cardinals is really what we have here. 3 different spots, different trajectories as teams, different, potential allure as a running back spot. I think, the Saquon element is definitely a part of this. Where does Saquon end up? But we will not need to answer that question for the purposes of this perfect match, because I have selected the Arizona Cardinals, who did in fact spurn Jonathon Brooks earlier in this speed dating session. But I will tell you why I think this is a perfect match between Benson and the Cardinals, because there's pick flexibility here. This is something I could have also mentioned with the Green Bay Packers with Jonathon Brooks. Both of these teams have a lot of flexibility in ranges in which a running back might be selected in this class. In this case, Arizona has, I believe, 2 seconds and 2/3, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that was the Packers. I know for a fact that they have 2/3. And at this point in time, I will swallow my pride and say that Trey Benson most likely tops out as a 3rd round pick in the NFL. At least that is where, smarter people than me are telling me he's going to go. I think this is a really good matchup with the Cardinals because the James Conner element here is a real thing. Conner saw a sort of career, like a nearly career season, here in the first year of this Drew Petzing offense in Arizona. Petzing coming over from the Browns, Kevin Stefanski. Obviously a great coach, just won Coach of the Year. We know how, much value they place on the running game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt once upon a time. Petzing comes over and we see this emphasis on the run game, even with a player like James Conner, who I'm not trying to slight Conner here, but not a player that was lighting up many eyes in terms of a dynasty perspective or just a fantasy perspective in general coming into the 2023 season. And Conner has this great year. They ran a lot of power for Conner, which I thought was a great decision for his running style and his skill set. So they're setting him up. There's, mixing it up, zone and gap, but leaning on the gap side of things. And Trey Benson is coming from 2 years at Florida State of running gap scheme. I think Benson can, more than adequately run a zone-focused offense. I think there's a lot of stock to put in, a sort of like Shanahanian offense with Benson, getting him lateral, getting him, an ability to use his skill set in space. But I also think Benson is a player that can excel in this sort of environment where it's, hey, this is where you're running, make the guy miss in that area. And I think Benson also has some sneaky power that we kind of forget about a little bit because he didn't show it as much in 2023. But 2022, he ran with this, ultra elusiveness, but also a lot of power, 4.5 yards per contact per attempt in 2022. And that was a very high number. It would have been the highest number amongst the backs that we talked about in this, in the perfect matches here. So I think there's untapped power with Benson. I think he fits well in this scheme. And I think, you can bring back Conner for the year. I mean, it's only I think they only saved like $3 million or something, or like $5 million or something if they cut him. You can keep Conner for this year, let Benson come in, be that change of pace back, and turn the ropes over to him next year fully. I think, as this offense grows, I think whatever running back ends up here is in for, potential success and certainly excitement in the dynasty community. And Benson was one that I thought would fit really well here.
Chargers make a lot of sense here. Eckler looked rough this season. He did look like a shell of his former self. Didn't have a lot of juice, and I just feel like Trey Benson could walk into there and be their lead back. I mean, if not this year, then next year. But they're not a perfect match. The Cardinals are a perfect match.
What?
I think that what you're putting down, I'm picking up. The Cardinals I wanted for Jonathon Brooks. But I feel like the same kind of messaging for Jonathon Brooks is in line with Trey Benson. They're similar players in terms of style. They're elusive. They can get out on the edge. They can make plays happen, and they can turn the burners on if they need to. And I feel like this Cardinals team needs juice more than anything. And as much as Conner is a good football player and like he rose above expectations in the 2023 season, he's still not like a big play threat like a Trey Benson or, some of these running backs that are in this draft class. So, I mean, Benson, I have my issues with him that I've put out there, but if nothing else, he's a guy that can be an excellent playmaker. And if he's going to be the number one running back on an ascending team that, is going to take Marvin Harrison at pick 4 and then run it with Kyler and Trey Benson and Marvin Harrison and then whoever else they end up putting around them. I mean, they need to address this defense. They do. But I mean, scoring a ton of points helps your defense a little bit.
Look at that. Storybook ending.
Started out a little rough.
It did.
We were going back and forth a little bit.
We build that tension and we bring it home in a big way. Lots of love.
Kind of like the Super Bowl.
Yeah. What a great game that
Incredible
was, by the way. Like top 5 of maybe ever.
The top 5 that I've seen. I mean, the second Super Bowl ever
to
go to overtime. I mean, unbelievable that I've seen both of them that have happened.
Yeah. Also, legendary kicking performances.
Seriously.
Record breaker and then another record breaker. But
yeah.
I was just shocked that there was only 7 50-plus yarders in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, when they were like, 55 yards, the longest field goal in Super Bowl history, I was like, there's no way.
That's not right.
Like, the record is 64 yards. You telling me they haven't gotten, like, to 58?
Right. Jesus. Well, it was an overall successful matchmaking event. Some players and teams are sulking, but most are off and enjoying their night, enjoying their evening ahead of this Valentine's Day. So I hope, this was insightful in terms of what is to come with these players, because they are not just, oh man, I like Trey Benson a lot. He's elusive and he's fast. And oh man, I like Malik Nabers. This is the point in time where these players are going to find homes in the NFL very soon. And that is the point in time in which we have to start thinking about what is the dynasty impact that they can have. And in many of these cases, this is a look at the best case scenario for some of these players right now. But we have a lot of time, Collin, to talk about what is coming for the 2024 rookie class. We will get into plenty NFL draft action as this cycle moves forward. But next week is our chance to take a step back, and not just one step back, but a whole 365 steps back, because we are going to go back in time and look at the 2023 class of campers. This was a fun introduction for our 2024 guys, but it is time to revisit now that the NFL season has officially concluded. We're going to be going back and doing a 2023 redraft where we can talk about our hits, our misses, and everything that has changed 1 year later.
Is Bijan still the number 1 pick?
Find out next week.
Overtake him? How high does Puka Nacua go? Find out next week on Camp Dynasty.
Incredible. Can we get like a trailer made for that? Like, that's just too good right there. But if you enjoyed our matchmaking session today on Perfect Matches, we had a lot of fun with it, and I hope you had fun listening. And if you did, please find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Camp_Dynasty, and TikTok at Camp Dynasty, and also our YouTube channel where you can, comment. We check the comments on YouTube. You can comment on TikTok. Like I said earlier, we had the Malik Nabers. There was a whole saga where people were the takes are flying, is what I'm saying.
Discourse going on.
Please share your takes. If you agree, disagree with anything that we said, we'd love to hear that. So find us on one of those channels and get in touch with us there. And if you enjoyed the pod, be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, share the pod feed, because we very much appreciate that.
We do very much appreciate that.
Means a lot.
Give us you guys didn't get us to 100 subscribers. I'm a little disappointed. I'm not mad. Just a little disappointed.
What are we at? 97?
Like 96, 97,
We'll get there. Valentine's Day. Spread the love. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There it is.
I like that.
All right. Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week. We'll see you next week.